For the sake of monetary gain, I masqueraded as an omega to ensnare the formidable Shinku, only to subsequently vanish from existence. After 2 years of mourning my ashes, the illustrious figure uncovered my ruse. When Shinku finally apprehended me, I found myself in the midst of a flirtation with a newly acquired affluent omega, articulating, "There's no rush to purchase a house. Let's first deliberate on how you might bear my children." Before I could finish my thought, a firm grip seized my neck, forcefully pulling me back and thrusting me into a solid embrace. I too yearn for children. Let us engage in a discussion. Shinku, tenderly caressing my gland, remarked with a bit more strength, "An alpha can bear as well." 1. As I prepared to vanish into obscurity with my fortune, I never anticipated that I would once again cross paths with Shinku in this lifetime. The man, impeccably dressed, sat across the gambling table, a cigarette poised between his fingers, his gaze unwaveringly fixed upon me. His presence was undeniably commanding. I felt a bead of sweat trickle down my spine, too intimidated to meet his eyes. As long as I played my part convincingly, there was a chance he wouldn't recognize me. After all, my gender was incongruent with his memories. During my time with Shinku, I had meticulously embodied the role of an omega, starving myself into a slender figure, whitening my skin, and procuring skin patches and pheromones from the black market to mask my true identity. I had transformed myself into an alluring, delicate omega, exuding the scent of gardenias, so starkly different from my current appearance. I reassured myself with a touch of my well-defined abdominal muscles. I was now radiating the potent aura of an A-level alpha, an alpha among alphas, a man among men. Steeling my resolve, I prepared to reveal my hand. Shunka leaned back, his face shrouded in smoke, and abruptly remarked, "You bear a striking resemblance to a dear departed friend of mine." Meeting his gaze, I maintained my composure and grinned. Many omegas employ such lines to flirt with me. Shunko flicked the ash from his cigarette, seemingly unfazed by my response, and scrutinized me through the haze. "You look remarkably like my wife." My smile faltered. Wife? How dare Shinku utter such a term? Even 3 years ago, I had merely been a fleeting companion to him, someone he would indulge in and then swiftly dismiss. Fortunately, he was generous with his financial compensation. Our 2-year liaison was sustained solely by my willingness to please. I showered him with affection, whispered sweet nothings, and lavished praise. Words like "You're amazing," "Big brother," "You're so strong," and "That feels incredible." There was nothing he wouldn't dare to hear, and nothing I wouldn't say. Shunku never reciprocated. If he grew weary of my chatter, he would simply frown, cover my mouth with his hand, and press against my waist, murmuring, "Stop talking and just breathe." In the bedroom, things were tolerable. However, once we left the bed, Shunka scarcely uttered a word to me. Was this how he treated his wife? No wonder he had none. Besides, despite our passionate encounters, he had never marked me. Not even temporarily. Thus, even after more than a year together, Shunku remained oblivious to my facade as a false omega. It appeared he had slipped into a reflective state. Did you know? The ashes of my wife smell like baby formula. I cradled her urn and wept for 2 years before realizing. I stiffened slightly, a shiver coursing through me. Was it possible for Shinku to cry? Surely this was a farce. I had never encountered a more cold-hearted alpha, one who remained unfazed even when pierced by a blade, capable of ripping it from his own flesh to strike back. If he shed a single tear for me, I would take his surname. Shunku offered a slight, eerie smile. Tell me, whose ashes could possibly smell like baby formula? I managed a hollow laugh, replying, "Perhaps your wife had a unique quality." It was a hasty remark. I should not have used baby formula as a substitute for ashes. Such an oversight was rather embarrassing. Shunku merely regarded my response with indifference, extinguishing his cigarette and leisurely revealing his hand. "Mr. Wei, you have lost. 2. Of course, Shunku did not come solely to gamble with me. He was here to discuss business, having grown bored while waiting for the casino owner, Lu Hong, and thus decided to join the gambling table. My willingness to engage in a wager against him was fueled by the lucrative stakes he offered. Gamblers often possess an inexplicable confidence, and I never entertained the notion that I might lose. Moreover, I knew Shunku well. He had never indulged in gambling and lacked experience in such matters. Yet, unexpectedly, I found myself sinking into a quagmire. Within just a few rounds, I lost my entire fortune. Shunku rose, fastening his suit jacket, his smile malevolent. "Tonight has been delightful." I remained expressionless, suppressing the urge to strike his handsome visage. Shunku's delight was built upon my suffering. The casino owner, Lu Hong, arrived fashionably late and accompanied Shunku to the upper floor. When Shunku descended, I was still at the table, convinced he had hexed me. Ever since our game, I had not won a single hand. My vision blurred with fervor. I fixated on the game, feeling an uncanny pressure looming behind me. Searching for its source, I caught a glimpse of Shunku leaning against the staircase, smoking. I averted my gaze, redirecting my thoughts back to the game. Look, even if you stare at me, I am still an alpha. Shunku lit another cigarette and navigated through the bustling crowd, positioning himself behind me. One hand held the cigarette, while the other, clad in leather gloves, slipped beneath my ribs, covering my hand as we pressed down on the dice together. Felt as though he were embracing me. Cutting through the cacophony, he spoke softly. Mr. Wei, if you encounter my late wife, please convey to her that, should we meet again, I shall end her. Turning my head to glance at him, I beheld his unforgiving profile, devoid of expression. His gaze fixed on the table, his fingers entwined with mine, gripping firmly as we rolled the dice. We won. Shunku met my eyes, inserting the half-burnt cigarette between my lips, a smile curling at the corners. Until we meet again. For a fleeting moment, I feared he recognized me. His smile, laden with ambiguity, sent chills down my spine, as though his gaze harbored a sinister intent, contemplating how to rend me apart. This was not a good sign. 3. In the realm of gambling, fortunes can shift in an instant. Just 3 days prior, I had possessed a modest sum, yet today, I found myself deeply indebted to the casino, unceremoniously ejected onto the streets. I retrieved a half-burnt cigarette from the ground and nestled in an alley to take a few puffs, contemplating escape. Firstly, Shunku had seen me and might be harboring suspicions. If he discovered I had deceived him, given his vengeful nature, he could easily dispose of me in the depths of the sea to feed the fish. Secondly, my debts were insurmountable, impossible to repay. Ultimately, I failed to flee and was apprehended by Lu Hong's men, imprisoned in the basement for 7 days. Upon my release, I felt as though half my life had been stripped away, and escape was no longer an option. Lu Hong granted me a month. Within that time, I must repay my debts. Shunku was undoubtedly my nemesis. 4. I returned to my former profession, ensnaring a rather eccentric, rose-scented wealthy Omega in a bar located in the affluent district. The petite Omega, named Guanzhu, delighted in plying alphas with alcohol. As Shunku pushed open the door to the private room, I found myself being playfully pinched on the face and forced to drink by Guanzhu, who was brimming with excitement, her eyes glimmering. Ah, Joe can hold his liquor so well, she teased, her voice a sultry whisper as she urged, swallow faster, quicker. I tilted my head back, striving to capture the torrent of liquor flowing forth. Suddenly, a voice rang out, President Shun has arrived. Guanzhu abandoned me to greet the esteemed President Shun. I knelt on the floor, wiping my mouth, and noticed Shunku's polished shoes coming to a halt before me. He settled into a seat directly in front, crossing his legs. What are you playing at? My mind felt slightly foggy, and it took me a moment to recognize the familiarity of his voice. Guanzhu grinned, responding, just playing some little games with my new puppy. Puppy? Shunku repeated softly, seemingly amused by the term. The shoes in front of me shifted, the cool leather pressing against my chin as he gradually lifted my face. My gaze traveled up his pant leg to the distinctly knuckled hands resting atop his knees, the familiar watch adorning his wrist, and the neatly pressed shirt subtly outlining the contours of his muscles. Without even glimpsing his face, I was certain that the man sitting before me was Shunku. Damn it, fate can be cruel. Shunku's eyes fell upon my face, and he inquired, Dog, is this amusing? I remained silent, while Zhu exuberantly chimed in, It's quite entertaining. A Joe drinks so quickly. It's rather alluring. Is that so? Shunku casually lifted a bottle of liquor, rubbing his thumb along the neck. How quickly? Leaning forward, he seized my face, forcefully thrusting the bottle's mouth into my lips, pouring the liquor down my throat as he murmured, The drink is precious. Do not let it spill. His actions were so harsh and the flow so rapid that I struggled to keep up, nearly choking, my neck straining under the pressure. Tears welled in my eyes as I grasped his wrist, attempting to pry the bottle from his grip. Shunku remained unyielding, his gaze fixed on me, tinged with a hint of something unsavory. If it spills, I'll find another way to administer it, he warned. No one in the private room dared to intervene, save for Bai Xian, who had just entered. Shunke's childhood companion, first love, and unattainable white moonlight. What is happening here? A slender hand grasped the liquor bottle. Aku, let him go. Bai Xian merely admonished him softly, shaking his head disapprovingly at Shinku. The bottle I struggled to wrest from Shinku's grip was gently relinquished. Deep down, Shinku was arrogant and obstinate, dismissing all but Bai Xian, an Omega who had grown up alongside Shinku, once his betrothed. 5 years ago, Bai Xian had strayed, leaving Shinku humiliated on national television while I was busy evading debts. Watching the impeccably dressed, aloof man on screen had stirred unwelcome thoughts within me. Seizing upon the faint resemblance between Bai Xian and myself, I attempted to allure Shinku, willingly stepping in as the fragile alpha nursing a broken heart. The scandal had been monumental, rendering Shunku the laughingstock of the city. Shunku unleashed his fury upon me, yet when Bai Xian returned, he offered no harsh words and easily forgave him. A single tear from Bai Xian would suffice to absolve all transgressions in Shunku's eyes. When I wept, however, Shinku would only escalate his aggression. The strength he exhibited before me was entirely absent in Bai Xian's presence. It was an epic display of devotion. My own performance as a sycophant paled in comparison. Allowing Bai Xian to take the bottle, Shunku leaned back, weariness etched across his features, and remarked, "Do not mind me, I was merely playing." I knelt on the ground, struggling to find my voice, bent over and coughing violently, gasping for breath. Bai Xian approached to support me. "Are you all right? Aku has a bit of a temper, he was offended today." He shot a disapproving glance at Shunku, chiding, "Apologize to him." Shunku remained silent, his gaze upon me devoid of warmth. Bai Xian affectionately but reproachfully nudged his calf with his foot. How irritating. What right did they have to be so intimate before me? No need to apologize. I wiped my mouth and pushed Bai Xian away, swaying slightly as I stood. "Just pay me. A bottle costs 200,000. I turned to Bai Xian and asked, "Will you be paying or shall he?" Bai Xian froze upon catching sight of my face, scrutinizing me closely, his expression darkening. Shinku, shrouded in shadows, lowered his gaze and muttered, 200,000, and you can kneel and be someone's dog." A scoff escaped him and he added, "Truly, how cheap." His words were harsh. Cheap, was it? Did he find 200,000 too low? Then I would demand something more extravagant. Gripping the liquor bottle on the table, I took a few quick steps and swung it, striking Shinku on the head. Watching the liquor mix with blood trickle down his handsome visage, I grinned and said, "My apologies, but I have a temper too." The pent-up frustration finally found its release. I had long wanted to strike him. What of it if I became a dog for money? It was certainly preferable to being a sycophant for love. I had but one life to live and held no fear of Shunku seeking vengeance. I continued to linger in bars, reeling in wealthy airs. A sweet-scented little Omega blushed under my gaze, eagerly professing his desire to buy me a house. Cornering him against the wall, I lifted his flushed face and flirted, "No rush on the house. Let us first discuss how you plan to bear my children." Before I could finish, a hand clamped down on my nape, yanking me backward into a solid embrace, a familiar yet cold voice descending upon me. "I want children too. Let us discuss it." I caught the scent of burnt gunpowder, a fragrance I had marinated in for nearly 2 years. My bones and blood remembered it well. Shunku gripped my gland, rubbing against me, his breath ghosting in my ear. "I've heard that with a bit more strength, an alpha can conceive as well." Lifting my gaze, I surveyed the Omega behind me, radiating an inexplicable arrogance. As he tightened his grip on my nape, his voice dripped with frost. "How many do you wish to have?" The moment his words settled, our lips met. Shunku's kiss bore a ferocity that threatened to consume me, leaving me unable to swallow, saliva spilling from the corners of my mouth. When Shunku released me, the little sweet-scented Omega had already fled. Damn it. I had been hoping for that golden-hued osmanthus cake. The adorable one was supposed to buy me a house. I seized Shunku by his collar, cursing fiercely, "Are you never going to leave me alone?" Shunku's dark eyes flickered under the bar's dim lights, glinting ominously. Deceiving an Omega is punishable by law. Deceiving an alpha is not. He wrenched my hand away, pushing me against the wall. "Do not prey upon the innocent." His large hand slipped beneath my shirt, resting on my lower back, gently rubbing, mockingly stating, "Deceive me. I have money. How much do you want?" "Whose money isn't money?" Shunku was eager to be deceived, and I would not let him off easily. I grinned and replied, 7 million. Will you give it to me? Shunku casually ignited a fire within me. Are you worth 7 million? My mood soured, and I grasped his increasingly inappropriate hand. If you don't intend to pay, then do not touch. He was all too aware of my sensitive spots. If I pay, can I touch as I please? Shunku's smile was faint, his words dripping with inquiry. Can I do as I wish? Certainly. I leaned against the wall, grinning. You may play however you desire. Shunku's smile faded, withdrawing his hand to slide a cold card into my mouth, suddenly turning callous. Strip. Strip right here. The bar was alive with noise. Shunku's voice was cold and clear, laced with chilling malice. Weijo, I intend to ruin you here. Shunku was clearly willing to go to any lengths to humiliate me. Previously, we would close the curtains tightly at home. Even the mere thought of holding hands in public would result in rejection. In the car, while flirting, Shunku could only manage a quick kiss before his restraint would show, or he would press me onto his lap, covering my mouth to silence me until we returned home. Now, after 2 years of my death, he seemed liberated. In this raucous environment, he showed no disdain. 2 impeccably dressed figures nestled in a shadowy corner engaged in the most sordid of acts. Shunku's breath brushed against my gland, as if savoring my essence. How delightful to discover your essence is that of cream. A light chuckle escaped. Ah, a cream-flavored alpha? Suddenly, he seized the tender flesh, teasing with both licks and bites. So sweet it is, can it truly be deemed alpha? The torment of my glands left me dazed, struggling to maintain composure. Shunku grasped my face, his gaze heavy. Look at that lowly expression upon your countenance. Is being embraced by an alpha truly this pleasurable? Indeed, I admitted. I felt no humiliation. Rather, I was vexed by his leisurely torment, dragging on without offering me any relief. Enough of this idle chatter, hasten.
Hien keskiviikko tiaklet softly.
One hand clasping my waist while the other covered my mouth. He bit my earlobe and whispered, do not weep or cry out. I shan't feel pity for you. The price I paid for that hasten was steep. I nearly melted into Shunku's embrace, carried into the vehicle. My glands were in agony, numb to sensation. Shunku bit down several times, injecting repulsive pheromones. The mingling of cream and gunpowder scents sent waves of pain through my mind. Lying on Shunku's lap, I permitted him to knead my glands, devoid of strength to resist. The repulsion of our pheromones rendered his attempts futile as they rapidly dissipated. Shunku showed no mercy. Parting the hair at the nape of my neck, he bent down once more, his canines sinking into the swollen glands, infusing them with his scent again. The unfamiliar pheromones invaded like needles, brazen and merciless. Cold sweat broke out as I clutched Shunku's hair, yanking him away. Stop biting. I am not an omega. Shunku licked his canines, seemingly unsatisfied. Of course you are not. There is no omega as disobedient as you. He continued to bite. I grew weary. Then there is no need to exert yourself. You cannot mark me. Shunku gently caressed the bite marks on my glands. That matters not. If you cannot mark me, then you will persist in your injections. Once filled, the scent will overflow. In due time, every inch of you shall bear my fragrance. Marked with the name of Shunku, I held no doubts that he would do just that, for he had committed many outrageous acts before. He once suspended me, and even when I lost consciousness, he paid no heed. Fortunately, I am an alpha with somewhat greater stamina. Were I an omega, I might have perished at his hands. There is something I have long wished to express. Shunku, I know of a rather good psychiatric hospital. Perhaps we should pay a visit someday. Shunku brought me back to his apartment, cradling me as I slept through the night. Upon awakening the next day, I rummaged through my pockets, but the 7 million card was nowhere to be found. Bursting into Shunku's study, I inquired immediately, where is my card? Shunku's gaze shifted from the computer to meet mine, beckoning me over with a finger. I approached him, bending down to extend my hand over the card. Shunku's hands rested atop his knees as he studied me for a moment. Call me hubby so I can hear it. I paused, glancing at his computer screen, observing 8 bewildered faces, and I slammed my hand onto the device. Closing my eyes, a sense of half-dead tranquility washed over me. Shunku, your video conference was not muted. Shunku's expression shifted to one of shock. He loosened his tie, tilting his head back to cover his eyes in embarrassment. 10 seconds later, he lowered his hand, his intentions unchanged. Call me hubby. Frustrated, I extended 2 fingers twice. as if adding that one extra call would somehow compensate. I have always prioritized money over pride, wrapping my arms around Shinka's neck, pleading, "Hubby, please give me the card. One to you? Hubby." A hint of amusement flickered in Shinka's eyes. "The card is in my pocket. Retrieve it yourself." I fumbled through his trouser pocket for what felt like an eternity, causing Shinka's breath to quicken, before I finally, leisurely, extracted the card. Shinka discreetly crossed his legs, his Adam's apple bobbing as he seized my withdrawing wrist. "You may take the money, but you must promise me one thing." Shinka's gaze pierced through me. "Wei Chiu, do not gamble again. If you agree, I shall let you go." I responded nonchalantly, "Very well, I shall cease gambling." Extracting my hand, I grabbed my coat and made to leave. I paid little heed to Shinka's words. To refrain from gambling was merely a ruse to escape. Once outside, I cast it aside. Nearly half a month later, I found myself once again ejected from a casino, battered and bruised. Collapsed in a filthy alley, a pair of polished shoes entered my line of vision. Shinka squatted before me, lifting my weary face. "How much do you owe this time?" 5 million. His fingers grazed my chin for a moment, his tone calm, betraying no hint of anger. "If you cannot fulfill your promises, why did you make them in the first place? Do you find amusement in deceiving me?" I stared at him, my thoughts muddled, swallowing hard as my gaze flickered. "Shinku, lend me 5 million once more. I shall repay you swiftly, truly. I am so close, just a little more. I can win it back, I assure you." Shunku's demeanor turned icy. "Why should I lend you anything?" My throat tightened as I replied, "I can be yours, whatever you desire." Shunku suddenly tightened his grip, causing pain to radiate through my jaw. "Is it true that for gambling you would sell anything? To anyone, it seems?" I opened my mouth, gazing at Shunku's stern visage. I discerned the faintest hint of disdain in his eyes. I scoffed derisively, "Indeed. Wei Chiu, you are truly beyond redemption." Shunku remained unflappable, as if he had anticipated this moment, his disappointment shallow. Just a gentle statement from him pierced through me. "I had hoped you would change after suffering setbacks. But I was mistaken. You are incapable of change." I once thought, at the very least. Shunka hesitated, his gaze wavering, seemingly struggling to articulate his thoughts. Ultimately, he merely smiled bitterly. "I cannot believe I had expectations of you. I should have realized that someone like you possesses no heart. I wished I were truly heartless. Then I would not feel the sharp pangs in my chest brought on by Shinku's words, his gaze." I swallowed hard. "Shinku, help me settle my debts. I promise I will not gamble again, all right?" Shinku released me, shaking his head. "I do not trust you. You are a deceiver." Rising to his full height, he looked down upon me, a trace of cruel pity evident. "Wei Chiu, I have given you a chance, and you have squandered it." After Shinku departed, a gentle rain began to fall. The patter cascaded upon me as I drifted in a daze, contemplating my reformation. During the 2 years spent with Shinku, I had not gambled even once. I wished to keep my gambling addiction hidden from him, to shield him from the sordid nature of my past. I endeavored to erase my true self, playing the role of a poor, clean, obedient Omega. As I continued this charade, I nearly convinced myself that I truly deserved to share a life with Shinku. Reflecting upon it now, I cannot fathom the immense effort it took to silently rid myself of all my vices, showcasing only the purest version of myself to Shinku. Had Bai Xian not returned, perhaps I could have continued this performance for a lifetime, living a perpetual dream. But I am no true noble. I am Cinderella, who must return home by midnight. A paragon such as Shinku can only be mine for the duration of a dance, after which, I must return him to his rightful princess. Bai Xian was correct. I am unworthy of Shinku. Suddenly, the rain ceased. Opening my eyes, I realized it was not the rain that had stopped, but rather Shunku's umbrella. He departed and returned, the umbrella shielding my head as raindrops cascaded down his hair. "Get up. I've made up my mind. You cannot change yourself. I will assist you in changing. You cannot quit. I will help you quit." He extended his hand towards me. "Wei Chiu, rise." His demeanor was arrogant, as if the net that ensnared me was of little consequence in his eyes. I am curious to see just how difficult it is to quit. I gazed at Shinku for a while, shielding my eyes with my arm, and smiled foolishly. How difficult could it be? Not difficult at all. It merely required someone to say to me, "Wei Chiu, get up." To say to me, "Wei Chiu, do not gamble." Such words, for 27 years, had been uttered by no one but Shinku. My deceased father taught me nothing but gambling. I was alone, wandering aimlessly. No one cared for me, and thus I cared not for anyone. I could rot and die, it mattered not. It would have been better if he had found me sooner, if he had reached out to me sooner. The essence of what is hard to quit is not gambling. It is something else. I am already in such disarray. I do not wish for Shinku to perceive me as even more wretched. Therefore, I lazily brushed his hand aside. Are you some sort of savior? If you're not giving me money, then don't bother me. I propped myself up and turned my back to Shinku, walking into the curtain of rain. I needed to move faster. I could barely hold on. Footsteps echoed behind me, and my wrist was seized. I dared not turn around, biting into the soft flesh of my mouth, and forcefully shook Shinku off. Get lost. Shinku remained silent, hoisting me up and carrying me towards the car. I kicked and struck, hurling insults at him. Shinku restrained me as one would a pig. When I could endure no more, he struck my backside firmly. Behave, or I'll tie you up. I ceased my struggles, not out of fear of him, but from sheer exhaustion. When Shinku placed me in the car, I felt a rush of cold and warmth, struggling to breathe. Realizing something was amiss, I was already on the brink of collapse. I gasped and reached for Shinku's clothing, stammering, Go find Lu Hong, he has the medicine. Shinku frowned. What medicine? My body felt as if it were being gnawed upon by insects. I frantically clawed at my neck, drawing blood with each scratch. My eyes bloodshot as I cried out. Find Lu Hong. Please go find him. Give me the medicine. Shinku grasped my hand, turned my face towards him, and stared for a long moment, a mixture of anger and amusement crossing his features. Wei Jiu, you truly are something else. He gritted his teeth. You dare touch anything. When Lu Hong captured me, he injected me with a serum to prevent my escape. They called it the new drug cube, capable of disrupting a person's pheromones. I was tormented by the chaotic pheromones, losing all rationality, struggling in Shunku's embrace, banging my head against the car window. Shunku used all his strength to pin me to the seat, removed his belt, and tightly bound my hands, then stripped off his shirt to bind my legs. Fearing I might bite my tongue, he shoved his arm into my mouth. Meanwhile, he had the presence of mind to make a call. Get Lu Hong for me, alive. After a moment's pause, his gaze sharpened. Half alive would suffice. I was delirious, suffering to the point of wishing for death, unaware of what was in my mouth, biting down fiercely. Shunku frowned, patting my head, saying, Easy now. I immediately twisted in agony. I thrashed about in a frenzy. Shunku, enough. He pinned my legs down. Forget it, bite away. As long as it makes you happy. When I regained consciousness, my throat was severely hoarse. Tilting my head, I saw Shunku napping on the sofa beside the bed. His left sleeve was rolled up, revealing deep bite marks that reached the bone. The taste of blood lingered in my mouth. Shunku appeared exhausted, and I did not want to disturb him. I planned to quietly dress and leave. I slipped on my trousers and turned to find a shirt, only to meet Shunku's gaze. He sat quietly on the sofa, his voice laced with fatigue and a hint of hoarseness. Run. The moment you exit this bedroom, I will break your legs. I shivered slightly. Shunku lifted his chin. If you're not going to run, then take off your clothes and lie down to sleep. I quickly removed my trousers and obediently returned to the bed, clutching the blanket and saying, I want water. Shunku, expressionless, fed me water. What else do you want? I licked my dry lips. Can I have you? Shunku tilted his head back to drink the remaining half glass of water. Raising an eyebrow, your ambitions are quite lofty. I watched his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed, and said, Shunku, I want to. Shunku set down the glass, lifted the blanket, climbed into bed, and held me close, nuzzling against my gland, asking, Do you still have strength? Under the influence of the drug, the entire bedroom was saturated with my pheromone scent, akin to being in a heat. Shunku's contact made me flush with heat, and I swallowed hard, saying engaging twice won't kill me. I wanted him, desperately. Shunku pressed down on my lower abdomen. Wei Jiu, if I can find your reproductive cavity, would you become pregnant? Nonsense. An alpha's reproductive cavity had shrunk to nearly non-existence. Besides, how could it possibly be found in such deep recesses? I firmly declared impossible. Shunku planted a kiss on my gland, slipping his hand into my sleep pants. What if? Give it a try. And thus, I experienced the terrifying prowess of an S-grade alpha. For a brief moment, I genuinely believed Shinku could locate my reproductive cavity. Kicking and flailing. Shinku, for heaven's sake, be gentle. When the phone rang, it felt like a heavenly melody. As I pressed to answer Shinku's call, I crawled towards the bedside. Phone. Pick up the phone. I needed a moment to breathe. On the other end, Bai Xian's voice resonated. Ah Ko, could you come pick me up at Tianla? I'm stuck here with some bosses drinking. Damn, had I known the unknown number was Bai Xian, I would have preferred to accompany Shinku in search of the reproductive cavity. Shinku grasped my calf, pulling me back and murmuring. Sorry, Xiao Xian, I'm busy. Busy with what?
Yes.
Is there anything more important than me? Shinku kissed my spine, responding nonchalantly. Yes, there is. I was pleasantly surprised by the kiss, letting out a soft sound. Deliberate. Bai Xian immediately became alert. Is there someone with you? Shinku, unwilling to elaborate, said, hang up. Bai Xian paused for a moment, then smiled sadly. Ako, are you still blaming me? You say you forgive me, but you haven't moved on. Just, if you still hold resentment towards me, please do not use others to provoke me, alright? It was my fault back then. I have realized my mistakes and have been trying to make amends. If you still care for me, do not resort to such childish tactics to provoke me. Shinku pondered for a moment, unconsciously massaging my gland. Bai Xian, my boyfriend knows of a decent psychiatric hospital. Do you need the address? The following morning, a private doctor arrived to examine me. After reviewing my medical report, Shinku remarked, when my wife left, she weighed 157 pounds. No way. Shinku tossed the papers in front of me, sneering. Now, you're down to 120. He fixed his gaze upon me, his eyes sharp as knives. You've lost 37 pounds. It was as if he were interrogating me, questioning where those 37 pounds had vanished. I averted my gaze, my mouth running. Your wife's ashes likely weigh less than 37 pounds. Shinku ha. Stabilizing the pheromones was no easy task. Under the influence of the pheromones, in a delirious state, I found myself on my knees before Shinku, bowing and pleading for him to give me the medicine. Cursing him, striking him, biting him. Shinku customized a chain specifically for me. Although it was wrapped in several layers of soft cloth, it still constricted my wrists, leaving them bruised. After a few instances, the flesh around my wrists began to rot. Noticing my distress, Shinku ceased using the chain to restrain me. Instead, he would personally subdue me when I succumbed to my cravings. I found myself powerless against his grip and, in a fit of desperation, seized a fruit knife and plunged it into his shoulder, howling frantically. Let me go! Let me go! Give me the drugs! I won't quit! Shinku, seemingly more deranged than I, held me tighter despite the knife embedded in his flesh, appearing oblivious to the pain. Be good, just endure a little longer. It will soon be over, he murmured. The agony was unbearable. Like a wild beast in a frenzy, I bit and clawed at him. Get away. Just leave me alone. I pleaded through tears. Just let me die. Shinku. Please let me die. Shinku pressed on the back of my neck, resting his forehead against my shoulder, whispering, No. Wei Zhou, after my wife passed, I was like a fool, weeping over a can of baby formula for a year and a half, taking advantage of my momentary lapse in clarity. He calmly shared the deep-seated panic he had kept hidden. That feeling, I never want to experience it again in this lifetime. Once I regained my composure, I touched the bandage on Shinku's shoulder and said, Shinku, next time I relapse, please lock me away.
Yen keskiviikkoas madness terrified me.
I feared that next time I might stab him in the heart, and he would still hold me close. 2 months into drug withdrawal, my condition gradually improved. My pheromones steadied. Although discomfort lingered, I could at least restrain myself from spiraling into madness. Shinku bore more injuries than I did, yet he never uttered a word about them. Only after I began to feel better did he permit me to venture outside. Shinku had come to the southern city to address branch office matters, but instead, he had been preoccupied with me for months. With tasks piling up, he had been too busy to be seen these past few days. Yet, no matter how urgent or hectic things became, he would always remind me before I stepped out, You may go for a walk, but be home before dark. He would repeat, Avoid the casino and bars. Do not speak to strangers, and do not accept anything from unfamiliar individuals. I found it amusing. I playfully pulled him in for a kiss, silencing his incessant admonitions. Don't worry, Daddy. I'm incredibly obedient. Shinku merely stared at me, speechless. That night, however, I failed to return home on time. While wandering the streets, I encountered an old gambling acquaintance. In a dim alley, he produced a vial of drugs from his coat, his eyes glinting with greed as he said, "Weren't you asking about this before? I've got it now, selling for 100,000 a vial." I lowered my gaze at the vial, rolling a cigarette between my fingers, remaining silent. The gambler swallowed hard and continued, "Lu Heng got taken out. Now, very few have access to this drug. Do you want it, or should I sell it to someone else?" I recalled the wounds on Shinku. Reaching out, I took the vial and asked, "Do you know Bai Xian?" The gambler's expression shifted, and he shook his head. "No." He became agitated. "Are you buying or not?" How convenient that every time I tried to get back on my feet, someone would appear to remind me, "Wei Jiu, you cannot escape this." It had been the same 2 years ago, and now it was no different. During those years with Shinku, I had nearly turned my life around, determined to deceive Shinku for a lifetime. However, once Bai Xian returned, everything spiraled out of control. Bai Xian uncovered my past and gently inquired, "Does Shinku know you were a gambler?" I replied hoarsely, "I no longer gamble." Bai Xian chuckled softly, "A gambler can change? Leave now. If Shinku discovers who you really are, he will be utterly repulsed. You know Shinku, he is a paragon, always seeking the best. Even in choosing a lover, he is extremely discerning. I understand Shinku. Had he known you were a gambler from the start, he would never have approached you." My heart quivered, and I could only weakly reiterate, "I no longer gamble." Bai Xian scoffed dismissively, seemingly finding my insistence laughable, looking at me with a hint of pity. In the past, I had a misunderstanding with Shinku and left him to go abroad for several years. Shinku resented me for it, harboring bitterness while taking a lover to spite me. I could tolerate it, as I was the one who wronged him initially. However, I do not wish for him to harm himself out of spite. Shinku can engage with an omega, but that omega must be clean and harmless. I would at least grant you some dignity. If you wait until Shinku drives you away, it won't be done so gently. Later, my former gambling acquaintances somehow tracked me down, relentlessly pursuing me. They even showed up at my doorstep, and one time Shinku saw them and asked who they were. I panicked and managed to deflect the question. In secret, I sought out those gamblers, inquiring how I could escape their clutches.
Yinya grinned. Yi.
"Let us gamble a round. If you win, we'll leave you alone." One round led to another. I tore off my facade at the casino, cheering at the tables. The more exhilarated I appeared, the emptier my heart felt. I could almost hear Bai Xian's laughter, resolutely declaring, "A gambler cannot change." When thoughts of Shinku crossed my mind, I suddenly snapped back to reality and fled the casino, racing home. The lights blazed brightly in my house. Shinku was waiting for me. I hurriedly pushed open the door, ready to call out to him, but the words caught in my throat. Shinku lay on the sofa, shielding his eyes with his arm, while Bai Xian loomed over him, tenderly caressing his face. Had I not burst in, they might have kissed by now. Hearing the commotion, Bai Xian turned his head. Our gazes locked, and I felt like an intruding fool. Shinku sensed something and stirred, his voice hoarse as he asked, "Is someone back?" Bai Xian pressed down on him, whispering, "No one." He softly continued, "Aku, it was my fault in the past. Can you forgive me?" Shinku's tone was weary yet gentle as he replied, "Bai Xian, I've already told you, I never blamed you." Bai Xian leaned in closer, murmuring, "Then let us return to the past, shall we? Return to the past to rekindle what once was. What place did I have in this?" Before Bai Xian could kiss Shinku, I panicked and turned away. In truth, I wanted to push Bai Xian aside and confront Shinku. I longed to slap him and then pull him in for a kiss, but I had no right. I was a fraud, a gambler, a wretch, and above all, I was not Shinku's beloved. This dream had long since run its course. It was time for it to end. I sought out the owner of a funeral home in the black market, arranging for a fake death service. As I left, I instructed, "Deliver my ashes to Shinku first thing tomorrow morning." I wanted him to awaken to that sight, to know that I had perished on the night he was entangled with Bai Xian. Even if he did not love me, I could still disgust him, ensuring he would remember me for a lifetime. The vial in my hand contained a pale blue liquid, appearing almost alluring. Injecting it would disrupt the pheromones, inducing hallucinations and plunging one into a false dreamscape. After Lu Heng administered this drug to me, Shindu once professed his love amidst that azure reverie. Drug use was akin to feeding sugar to pheromones. Once fed, it demanded continual sustenance. Otherwise, the pheromones that had tasted sweetness would spiral into madness, commandeering the mind. The withdrawal process was excruciating, a torment few could endure. This new type of illicit substance was typically wielded by dealers to exert control, seldom accessible to the average person. For an ordinary gambler to obtain it, there had to be someone orchestrating behind the scenes. Someone wanted me to continue spiraling downwards. I confronted the gambler. How much did Bai Xian pay you to ensnare me? After the fake death plan, I had asked Jinya how he located me. He revealed that someone had given him money and my address, instructing him to hound me. From mere fragments of conversation, I deduced that the individual in question was Bai Xian. Employing the same old tricks, did he intend to ensnare me twice? As I toyed with the vial of drugs, I addressed that gambler. Do you know? My boyfriend, in his efforts to help me rid myself of this vice, has endured several stabs from me, leaving him with over a dozen wounds that have yet to heal. Lowering my voice, I continued, I have been clean for 2 months, yet he has become even thinner than I. I raised the vial. Before I could finish my sentence, a sudden roar erupted from behind me. Wei Jiao, how dare you? Startled, I turned to see Shinka rushing towards me, anger evident on his brow and his expression grim. My heart sank as I glanced at the drugs in my hand, then back at the approaching Shinku. This was a disaster. A grievous misunderstanding loomed. I caught the scent of volatile fury in the air. My legs felt weak, and I instinctively took a step back, hastily explaining, Shunku, listen to me. I had no intention of. Shunku abruptly pulled me into his embrace, snatched the vial from my grasp, and hurled it to the ground, sending it crashing. With a swift kick, he propelled that gambler 2 meters away, slamming him against the wall. Like an enraged lion, cold and ferocious, he declared, send a message for me. If anyone dares to approach him again, I will take their life. With that, he seized my hand and strode away. I stumbled after him, my heart racing, fearful that Shinka might inadvertently harm me. I quickly explained, hoping to calm him. I had no intention of using the drugs, truly, I have quit. You arrived too early. Had you come a moment later, I would have smashed that vial. Shunku remained silent, roughly tossing me into the car. Upon returning to the apartment, he slammed the door shut and pressed me against it, tearing at my clothing. I sensed his unease and submitted to his fervor. When Bai Xian knocked on the door, Shinku was still in a fervent mood. Separated by a mere door, Bai Xian knocked outside while I trembled within. I bit my lip, daring not to make a sound, instead bracing myself against Shinku, whispering, there is someone outside. Shinku cast his gaze downward, prying my hands apart and pinning them to the door. He murmured, then you'd best cover your mouth, lest he hears you. The knocking ceased, and Bai Xian's voice penetrated from outside. Ako, are you there? Shunku did not respond, his lips trailing kisses along my neck, showing no sign of stopping, and in fact seemed to grow more excited. I weakly grasped the door frame, finally unable to withstand it, and raised my hand to cover my mouth. Damn it! What a beast! Outside, Bai Xian paused for a moment before continuing. Aku, please don't ignore me. Your window is lit. You must be inside, right? Shunku patted my waist, his voice low and commanding. Lift your chin. Bai Xian continued. I know you're still angry with me. I truly did not betray you. It was not intentional. At that time, I suddenly entered heat, and you were away. My senior had no choice but to temporarily mark me to help me through it. I didn't let him touch me, I swear. Shinku, I am sorry for leaving you without a word, but I was genuinely at a loss on how to confront you. I feared you would think me tainted. I was so afraid. I listened absently to Bai Xian's confession. How splendid. The misunderstanding was cleared. Next, we could proceed with the act of star-crossed lovers reuniting. Suddenly, I felt a grip around my neck from behind, Shunku scrutinizing me with a hint of discontent. What are you thinking? I wiped the sweat from my brow and smiled at Shunku. Your beloved is outside. Will you not open the door? Shunku seized my damp hand. My beloved is dead. Her ashes rest on my bedside table. I felt a surge of joy, leaning against the door, raising my voice to exclaim, Aku, you're amazing. The sobbing from outside abruptly ceased. Amused, I trembled with laughter. Shinku, far from angry, swept me into his arms, carrying me toward the bedroom. There's even more amazing to come. I fervently acquiesced to Shinku, hoping to alleviate his anger. After 5 hours of reassurance, Shinku finally quieted down. He caressed my damp abdomen and said, Wei Jiao, if you were to have a baby, wouldn't you have some reservations? I hoarsely replied, Shinku, I truly can't anymore. Please let me rest. Shunku embraced me from behind and softly said, I have been waiting for you to admit it, to explain, to confess, to tell me that you are my wife. Weijo, am I to wait forever? My heart fluttered. Some words suddenly felt too burdensome to suppress. Even if Shunku were to reject or ridicule me, I would accept it. Shunku, on the night your wife died, who were you with? What did you do? Shunku fell silent for a while, seemingly in contemplation, then resolutely replied, You returned that night. I continued to speculate. Did you see Bai Xian? Taking a deep breath. I found my assumptions absurd. Surely you don't think I harbor feelings for Bai Xian? Indeed. Shunku chuckled in frustration, struggling to contain his anger as he explained. That day, my grandfather held a birthday banquet. I had been drinking, and Bai Xian brought me back. I have a poor tolerance for alcohol, my head throbbed, and my consciousness was dulled. I am not entirely sure what Bai Xian did, but I know for certain that I did not touch him. I have never liked Bai Xian. I scoffed. If you do not like him, why do you indulge him without restraint? Bai Xian has wronged you, yet you hold no grudge. Bai Xian's father was my father's bodyguard. He died saving my father. Out of gratitude, as long as Bai Xian does not overstep, I will not hold anything against him. Bai Xian grew up under my grandfather's care. The old man favored him greatly. The previous marriage was also arranged by my grandfather. At that time I had yet to meet you, nor did I have anyone I liked. I would have married anyone. My grandfather was pleased, and I had no reason to refuse. When I learned Bai Xian had been marked, I felt little. What was there to blame him for? Even if he slept with someone in front of me, I felt nothing. I was dumbfounded. What was this? In the end, the once celebrated couple turned out to be a figment of Bai Xian's imagination? Shunku grasped my face, turning it toward him. Now it's your turn. Why not ask me? What use is your mouth? After a moment of contemplation, I replied, to kiss you. Shunku remained unfazed by my jest, gazing at me intently. After a while, he tossed me aside and got off the bed, reaching for a cigarette and stepping onto the balcony. I watched his somewhat desolate silhouette and followed him, standing beside him. The smoke curled from his lips, drifting slowly into the night air. Shunku stared into the darkness, his voice calm. In truth, I harbor a deep resentment toward you. You will never know what my life was like during those 2 years when you pretended to be dead. You will never understand the guilt I felt. You will also never know what it is like to be tormented by regret every single day. Shunku turned his head, his eyes slightly reddened. Weijo, I do not actually care whether you are deceiving me. I only resent that you did not even grant me the chance to explain. You did not even bother to ask. Yet you condemned me without room for reconsideration. His hand holding the cigarette trembled slightly. How could you be so cruel? I extended my hand, hesitated for a moment, then finally wrapped my arms around him firmly. I'm sorry, Shunku. I am a coward. I tightened my embrace, but I will not retreat. From this day forth, I will not take a single step back. I chuckled softly. You will never be able to rid yourself of me again. Once my health was fully restored and I no longer fell ill, Shunku finally took Lu Heng and the evidence to the police station. By the time Lu Heng arrived at the station, he was barely hanging on. And without the police even asking, he confessed everything. It appears that there is a strong desire to be confined. I remain oblivious to the actions of Shunku that have tortured an individual to such an extent. I was aware from the very beginning that Shunku had apprehended Lu Heng. Each time my affliction subsided, Shunku's temperament seemed to darken. That kind of pent-up fury could be alleviated by a mere excursion. My curiosity led me to accompany Shunku on one occasion. We arrived at a villa in the suburbs. I stood downstairs for a while, straining to listen, and faintly heard the cries of a man in agony. Upon his return, Shunku would take a shower and change his attire. Inside the villa, Lu Heng was confined. With each episode of my malady, Shunku would make a visit. Once I recovered, Shunku would release his captive. Lu Heng ultimately divulged all the details. A month later, Bai Xian was also apprehended. Lu Heng claimed he was involved in the trafficking of illicit substances, and the idea of using drugs to control gamblers originated from Bai Xian. After Bai Xian was incarcerated, Shunku received several calls from home, all urging him to intervene on Bai Xian's behalf. Shunku's sole response was no rescue. One night, I was awakened by Shunku, who was whispering to his grandfather. He stated, "Grandfather, my restraint in not personally exacting revenge on Bai Xian is a testament to my mercy." He continued, "I advise you against attempting to extricate him. He is safer within." It seemed Shinko had already gathered sufficient information regarding Bai Xian's dealings. I feigned sleep with my eyes closed. Shunke cast a furtive glance at me and lowered his voice further, attempting to placate the elderly man on the other end, saying, moreover, my wife is on the verge of pregnancy. Should you fail to comply, I will not bring her to meet you. I thought to myself, how absurd. I touched my flat abdomen, already contemplating a visit to the hospital with Shinku. His conversation was incomprehensible on the other end. Shunku spoke with confidence. What of Alpha? As long as I possess enough strength, Alpha can conceive as well. After concluding the call, Shunku climbed into bed, embracing me and saying, stop pretending. Weijo, if you can't sleep, let us make a baby. The aroma of gunpowder intermingled with that of cream, two discordant scents enticing one another. In the tale's conclusion, the prince, clutching the crystal slipper, searched the nation far and wide until he found his timid Cinderella. Thus ends the narrative. Thank you for listening, and we shall meet again in the next story.